Hey darlings. Olga, a romantic, dreamlike nature, always wanted to give birth to a girl. It seemed to her that she could give her daughter what she was not rich with. The woman dreamed of how to give her future baby love and care. She would dress her in the most beautiful dresses, sewn by her own hands, magnificent self-made costumes, to weave the lush braids to the waist. When soon after the wedding with Mikhail, she found out that they would have a child, then not a single night went by without Alya dreaming of a daughter. Even before her trip to the maternity ward of the local district hospital, she came up with an unusual name. She wanted her long-awaited baby to be called Mariana, in no other way. Of course, it was impossible to find other girls with such names in their villages. All families gave their daughters simple and even traditional names: Maria, Elena, Ekaterina, Daria. But Olga, for her beauty, chose the name that would suit her baby as the second skin in an exotic foreign series. She didn't even think about it. The woman was firmly sure that the girl was the one who was carrying the baby under her heart. However, this time Olga's motherly intuition did not let her down. As if a newborn baby was screaming in the maternity ward, the nanny informed the young mother, "Your daughter is with you." Olga's joy had no limit. Could not look at the cute wrinkled nose, tiny fists, pink cheeks. At that very moment, Alya completely plunged into her motherhood. This immersion turned out to be so deep that the woman barely noticed how her husband disappeared from her life. Mikhail simply packed his things and grieved at his wife, barely fulfilling the 3 weeks of labor. It's impossible to say that Olga was very sad about him, because now she had a completely different goal in life: to raise a daughter. Alya's parents died not long ago, when she was finishing school. At first, her father died of a heart attack, and in 6 months her mother went after him. She was their late and only daughter. Alya no longer had any relatives, but her parents' house. She became fully independent from that time. Olga lived there with her Mariana. The childhood of little Mariana was quite joyful, and, one might even say, almost cloudless. Of course, she was there for all sorts of troubles, but there were not so many of them. It is noteworthy that many problems of a girl with such a rare serial name was created by her. Name: Mariana was called by very few. Most of the peers, and even adults, shortened this foreign and unusual name for the villagers to just Marina or even Masha. Mariana herself did not like this very much, and she threw herself at the offender with all her heart. A little later, when the girl reached the age of school, she was started to be teased by the classmates, just for this feature of character. They knew that the name was what Mariana would fight for, so they did not miss the opportunity to arrange a show. Despite the jitters from not too many intellectual classmates, Mariana grew up a fully developed and hardworking child. Olga herself regretted very much that in her time she could not, as it should be, study at school to enter the city institute and live away from the village. Therefore, now she carefully controlled the study of Mariana, seeing this chance for a happy future for her only daughter. When Mariana finished classes, it was time to settle with the long-awaited institute. Of course, both mother and daughter understood that they could not pull the capital establishments, neither in terms of preparation for admission, nor in terms of the cost of living. Therefore, it was decided to enter the regional center not far from their village. This would give the young student the opportunity to come home more often, and it would be easier for the mother to keep Mariana. It was said and done. Having spent several weeks over the textbooks, Mariana went to conquer the city. Until now, she had traveled a few times from her village, and therefore only approximately imagined. K-Coin, Regional Center. The city turned out to be huge, noisy, dusty, but it completely amazed Mariana's imagination. The girl walked the streets, looking up at the tall buildings and the TV towers, looking at the ads on the big boards that were changing each other and the bright neon signs of shopping centers. The immigrants saw the world. She remembered the song from her long-forgotten childhood. Indeed, Mariana saw the big world. Mom's persistence was not in vain, and therefore the exams did not seem to the girl extremely difficult. Yes, she did not answer all additional questions, but her knowledge was enough. At the end of July, the girl with pleasure and pride found her surname in the list of. The matter remained small. Learn and get a diploma in higher education to fulfill Olga's dream. Never in life will they return to the village. Mariana chose the faculty of philology because it was knowledge from the field of linguistics that was given to her easiest. If mathematics or physics demanded from a girl literally achievement of feats, then foreign languages and Slavic turned out to be just indignant. Among her classmates there were almost no boys, and this upset the girl a little. Before the beginning of the school year, Olga gave her daughter a very clear instruction. Be sure to try to settle in the city and not return to the village. Life here is hard now. It will be better if you become a city girl. Being an obedient daughter, Mariana tried to combine her studies and not forget about personal life. However, what kind of personal life can a girl who lives in a student dormitory have? The staff demanded that by p.m. all the residents were already in their rooms, and the commandant threatened to evict everyone who would bring the cavalry to her next year. Therefore, Mariana was envious of her friends, who, despite the truly dragon rules of the dormitory, managed to actively arrange their future immediately on all fronts. Mariana had a rather modest character, which did not allow her to dive into various adventures with her head. While amorous adventures for the girl remained somewhere behind the scenes, she actively created a reputation at her own faculty. Since she had free time at her own academy, the girl, or directly at the department, her efforts were highly appreciated by almost all teachers, because it was this student who could always successfully perform at seminars, colloquiums, conferences, or even simply answer any, even the most difficult question correctly. One of the employees of the department was a certain Anton Evgenevich, a young aspirant who worked as a senior teacher, and had very few auditorium hours with the students. He was entrusted to enter one of the faculty subjects on the first year. Despite the fact that the subject was only a faculty subject, with the final grade instead of the exam, it was incredibly difficult to get this very cherished inscription, read. Anton Evgenevich scrupulously took into account the visits and demanded to hand over a bunch of references. In that case, if the student missed his pair, even if this miss was for a respectable reason, if on other subjects the first-year students could stall and not hand over work on time, then this number never passed with Anton Evgenevich. He easily sent such students to the deaconate for admission to visit his pair. Mariana was preparing to hand over all the work to this teacher very carefully, so as not to please the teacher. Anton Evgenevich also stood out as a hard-working student. Without a doubt, he saw that the level of Mariana's training was not as great as it was possible for other students. The general rudeness is not enough. There is no ability to respond to a large audience, but these shortcomings were easily compensated by the hard-working and performance of the girl. He liked it, and even was lazy about his subject. Of course, the students were all over the eyes of the young teacher and joked about him with a romantic underline. Although he did not look like Apollo at all, he was nevertheless intelligent, promising, and considerate. Anton tried to pass all the students' hints by the ears and never to cross the line of professionally allowed interest in relationships with his students. However, Mariana, she behaved surprisingly correctly and did not show any particular interest in the teacher's personality. Since Anton's teaching experience was still too small, he preferred to support unexpected control works among the students, the only group he trusted. Most of these works were not difficult, however. The guys kept the tone and allowed to accurately track who and how paid attention to his subject. In addition, Anton Evgenevich also checked the conduct of the inspections, which caused fierce resistance among most walkers, because they had to look for someone who could write the necessary lecture. And then it was Mariana, carefully visiting all pairs, that became a real find for the groupers. In her notebook, everything was always needed for the success of the checkups, which means that she had a real Klondike with her friends. It was natural that this required the girl to be even more serious about the subject, ask the teacher additional questions, try to answer his questions in the first rows. The first winter session was approaching. Since the university policy on the numbering of students for the lack of time was very strict, the first could easily become the last. In order to avoid such sad consequences, many first graders finally settled for the textbooks and textbooks. Mariana, with her notes, was just on the edge, and as it seemed to the girl, she felt really in demand and happy. She was enthusiastic, preparing for all the tests and exams, checking the presence of the necessary materials, not leaving the library reading room for days. The first exam in her student life was a great one. Like the second one, another subject was shining in front of her, the one that was taught by a young staff member. Coming to the dorm, Mariana immediately went to the shelf with notebooks and books to look for the notes and start teaching it. There were 3 days left before the school. Not so much to allow herself to just rest. Not on the desk of the desired conspect. Mariana desperately searched the entire room and even looked at the bookshelf of the neighbor. Maybe she accidentally grabbed her conspect? Empty. Nothing. With difficulty, waiting until the girl who they shared the room with will return from the evening walk, Mariana attacked her with questions. Yes, Pavlik came in. I allowed him to take your notebook. He missed the last 2 lectures and promised that he would rewrite and return today. The neighbor was rarely calm. Having spread 2 lush vases overnight, she did not see the problem that Mariana could simply not be allowed to submit a report without a conspect. And this, in turn, means that with training at the university you will have to say goodbye. As with city life, not feeling under your feet, Mariana rushed to the 3rd floor, where the boys were placed. But Pavlo was not there, as well as her notebooks. The neighbor in the room said that Pasha would only return in the morning. To say that Mariana was upset is to say nothing. The girl felt that the earth had literally left her foot. It is impossible to recover from the first year. This meant that she would have to return to her village, to her mother, who would most likely be very disappointed with Mariana. With these gloomy thoughts, the girl fell asleep, so that in the morning again, neither light nor dawn, she would stand under the doors of Pavlo's room. However, he did not appear. Somewhere he wanders, his neighbor replied indifferently. Not for the first time. This happens to Pasha. Mariana was overwhelmed by real despair. First of all, she had nothing to learn from the score. Each group member used his own and could not let him use it. Secondly, without a score, she would not even be allowed to pass the score. And that means that it was all in vain. When there was only 1 day left before the exam, and Pavel did not come and did not pick up the phone, despite insistent calls, Mariana decided to talk about her trouble with the teacher. In the depths of her soul, the thought of the fact that Anton Evgenievich will understand her and will not fight against the lack of a notebook, and she will somehow be able to answer the questions. Only if he believed her that she did not lose her self-respect, but became a victim of the indifference of her comrades. By the evening, they became quite quiet and somewhat quiet. Mariana came to the classroom in the second half of the day, so as not to be pushed with her request among the crowd of students of other courses. Anton Evgenievich met her at the door, already about to leave home. Something happened to Mariana. The teacher was surprised, barely looking at her concentrated and upset face. And Mariana didn't expect that Anton Evgenievich remembers her name. I can't show you the conspect tomorrow, the girl said in a trembling voice. Seeing that Anton Evgenievich continues to watch her with a restrained interest, Mariana was forced to tell the whole story from the very beginning. How her conspect turned out to be without demand from Pasha, the most broken boy in the group, and now she can't find neither Pavlo nor her notes. Please, let me answer this way. I don't want to be kicked out of the university. The girl finished her story. Anton laughed at her unexpectedly. Mariana even stepped back a little from the light spot in the corridor. The laughter of a usually harsh and collected teacher looked so strange. Mariana, you are perhaps the only one on the course whose knowledge I am completely sure of. The teacher laughed and said, in addition, I could not believe that you students perceive me as a monster. No, no, what are you? What monster? Mariana tried to justify herself, but Anton Evgenievich made an invitation gesture with his hand. Come here to the office. I see you are frozen. I was about to leave, but we can still have time to drink hot tea in a cup. This tea-drinking girl will remember for life. The office was warm in the office. The convector was, said the man, taking out 2 teaspoons from his desk and passing one to Marianne. Because let's say that I will receive the credit without a conspect. I know for sure that you have one. However, I ask you not to tell any of the guys about this. Became a little more ghostly. In addition, she was quite warm and good. And the tea, despite the fact that it was packaged, turned out to be very tasty. This was brought to my mother from abroad. Anton commentated carelessly, intercepting her look at the box. You won't find this in our store. And my mother likes this one the most. Indeed, very tasty. Marianne praised the taste of her mother. Let's switch to you. Unexpectedly, Anton Evgenievich suggested. Just call me by my name, because I'm not as old as you think I am. Well, you, that is, you, Mariana hotly stepped in for the appearance of her teacher. You, that is, you, of course, you look very young. I would not give you more than 32 years. Thank you, but I'm only... Oh, I'm sorry. Mariana was embarrassed and even blushed from her indifference. Empty. It's really not easy for a man to determine his age by appearance. And you, how old are you? If you just started studying, let me guess? Yes, Mariana nodded. In the summer, you will turn. A wonderful age, a time when all life is ahead. It seemed that Anton sincerely admires not only Mariana's age, but also her own. The girl noticed how he looked at her hair, hands, elegant thin neck, listening to her voice. She was pleased with such attention from the man. For the first time since they met, the magic of this evening could not last long. Once again, looking at the old-fashioned watch on the left wrist, Anton called out, I was so late. I need to call my mom urgently. She must be worried. This surprised Mariana. At the age of, from her point of view, a person is quite capable of making a decision on his own when he should come home. But she did not argue for obvious reasons, and only gently lowered her eyes when Anton was talking on the phone. I'll walk you home, he said, putting down the phone. Together they left the university building. The evening of winter comes early, and in the dark night sky, bright stars were already shining. Look how good it is. Anton exhaled up, and a white cloud of steam tore his lips, striving higher and higher. Yes. The girl bowed. The two of them, without stopping to talk, reached the turn to the hostel where Mariana lived. The girl stopped and Anton followed her example. Young people stood opposite each other, striving to preserve the memory and charm of this evening. Until tomorrow, the first to violate the silence of Anton. Until tomorrow, Mariana called out with an echo. The neighbor in the room, with surprise, noted that Mariana completely stopped worrying about tomorrow's exam. She calmly undressed and lay down to rest, while all the students of their group were. The next morning she met the students of the first graders in a hurry. Under the door of the auditorium, in which Anton Evgenievich took the exam, people were in a hurry. Someone tried to look into the prospect before going to answer. Someone was loudly discussing questions, and someone was just waiting in silence in his turn. Mariana was the last one to go. She decided not to go to the first 5 and wait until the end of the exam. The girl really wanted to be alone with the teacher for some reason. Maybe he will share her hobbies with her, and the spark that burst last evening will not go out. When all the other students had already received their cherished notes, and some of them really got only a wish to come next time, Mariana pushed the massive door and stepped into the auditorium. That very Pasha. Another guy wrote an answer behind his back, and the third part was free. Mariana sat behind her and began to wait in her turn. When a few minutes later they were left alone with Anton, a warm wave of happiness swept over the girl. And I was waiting. The teacher smiled with a wide boyish smile. What did you pull so hard? Were you really afraid of me? Just. Anton Evgenevich raised his eyebrows in a question. I just wanted to be alone with you. Mariana fell out and lowered her eyes. She heard the teacher get up, came up to her, sat down at the next seat behind her desk, and suddenly felt how he touched her crown with his lips. So simple and gentle. The girl bravely pressed on Anton's shoulder, and he hugged her tightly and pressed on himself. Let's be together? He offered without any tricks. Come on, Mariana called out with a smile. Starting from this winter day, Anton and Mariana met all the time. They went for a ride and to the movies together, walked along the snowy alleys, and admired the frozen lake in the park. They rested in atmospheric cafes and just made fun of each other. Mariana thought that her dream had come true. Anton was gentle and gallant. It was incredibly easy and very pleasant to communicate with him. The man was happy to tell the girl about himself. He lives with his mother. He studied at the university. He decided to move to science and entered the aspirant. Now he will gain teaching experience, write and defend his dissertation. And there you can think about big earnings. She grew up in the village, and her hometowns were not rich in attractions. Nevertheless, Anton liked her goal. After all, Mariana was able to prepare for the entrance to the university on her own. Before the long session, Anton began to pull her up on some subjects with which she had problems. This helped Mariana to pass the session almost perfectly, but also caused a lot of envy among her classmates. In general, it should be said that their relationship became obvious to everyone already at the beginning of the second semester. A few times rumors came to her that the guys believe that with their connections with Anton, she hopes to solve her problems with her studies, and in turn only to her benefit the attention of the young student. But she did not give importance to this gossip, because she knew well what a female collective is. Another significant spoon and an elbow in their relationship was, at least so far, the invisible mother of her beloved. Mariana has already managed to make sure that Anton agrees with all her plans. The first few months the girl even liked it, because nowadays it is rare to meet a person who loves and respects her parents so much. Anton always reported to his mother on the phone where and in what society he is, when he will return home, and how much money he spent today. As a great son, he never forgot to fulfill his mother's instructions, or buy her some nice business as a surprise. But gradually she began to be irritated by such a situation, because being alone with Anton and not waiting for another phone call was out of the realm of fantasy. Even when the young people left together to the tourist base for a week in the summer anger, Anton's mother called him every. What was her son doing during this time? She doesn't trust you? Me? Mariana tried to make such endlessly obsessive calls. No, don't say that. She's just worried about me, answered Anton, embarrassed, smiling. It's no wonder that Mariana herself was in a hurry to meet Anton's parents. Yes, he didn't insist on such an acquaintance. When the girl invited her lover to her village to visit and talk to her mother, Anton refused to go on a trip because he didn't want to worry about his long absence. Mariana immediately understood who Anton meant, but the girl was unable to change the situation. A few weeks after that romantic trip to the tour base, something strange began to happen to Mariana. Weakness. She was constantly feeling nauseous, losing appetite, and she did the pregnancy test without thinking for a long time. After minutes, Holding a long piece of plastic with bright two stripes in her hands, she did not know what to do with it. Cry or laugh, rejoice or be sad. On all plans to get a full-fledged higher education, but a child from a beloved man is happiness. Does not every young woman dream about this? Anton, surprisingly, reacted to the news that he would become a father, very happy. Mariana noticed just that he was a little confused and muttered quietly as if about himself, "It will be necessary to please Mom." And then the proposal was announced, which is probably expected by every girl since the day she fell in love with a man. Anton said, "I think the child should be born in marriage. You need to submit a statement to the registry office." Marianne, of course, wanted a more magnificent and even pompous proposal of hands and heart. The girl dreamed that her beloved would stand in front of her on one knee, present a red velvet box with a ring. He will be pleased with a visit to an expensive restaurant or a bouquet of flowers. The girl was happy, however, that her future baby will definitely have a father. She nodded, looking at Anton with big, wet, slightly sad eyes. Already on the next Monday, two important events were to take place in their life. First, Anton promised to introduce Marianne to his mother, Violetta Yegorovna. And secondly, they were supposed to make a statement for the solemn registration of the marriage. On that day, the lovers had almost never seen each other since morning, because Anton spent almost the whole day at the conference hall and the conference room. It was raining heavily, and Mariana was looking at the window of the dormitory with longing. Not so dull, to be honest. She imagined the beginning of her future family life. What can you do here? Each girl considers herself worthy of the brightest, most memorable holiday of love, weddings. And those numerous village weddings, witnesses of which she had to be for her years, were in the form of fun and happiness. Of course, Mariana understood that she would hardly find any money for a fancy party, but she can count on at least a modest dress. From a not very fashionable salon, an inexpensive cafe and photographer, who will impress the moment of their birth with Anton the family. Having decided that it was time to please Mom, Mariana dialed the cherished number. Alia, of course, softly scolded the daughter when she learned the reason for such a strong rush from the registration of marriage. "You're no longer a fool, my daughter. If it worked out that way, then get married. I will help you as much as I can, but try not to drop out of school. When are you giving birth? At the end of March, April? There will be a lot of time before the session. Maybe your Aunt Osha will help you with something. You can reach the end of the course. And there is a lot to do in the summer. The main thing is to study. Remember, baby, that this is your only chance in life. Don't argue with Aunt Osha. Don't swear. You are almost a wife now, and a wife should be, and obey his husband." When Anton called Mariana and reminded her of meeting Uzaks, the girl was almost ready to go out. Born in a cute blue dress with white flowers on a coquette, the joyful Mariana left the house and, already after about 4 hours, was at the stairs of the palace of marriage. However, here she was waiting for the first surprise. When the future young wives were given to fill the blanks, Anton confidently put a check mark in the field of registration without a ceremony. "But why?" Only I was able to ask Mariana, barely holding back tears. "I consulted with my mother, as if about something, of course, reasonable," answered Anton in a reasonable tone. "And she said that we don't have any extra money to spend on the empty ones. But these are not empty. This is our wedding." The first tears ran over Mariana's eyes and rolled over her cheeks, leaving long, wet tracks on them. "Well, baby," Anton said, "of course, it's our wedding, it's important. But a baby needs a lot of things. We need some money in reserve." Mariana had to nod in agreement, but how sorry the girl was. Missed the opportunity to dress in a white dress next to his elect. Somehow, having split the application, Anton and Mariana left the office and went to the bus stop. Despite the fact that the rain still poured, Anton decided not to spend money on a taxi. Mom said that we could get there anyway. Marianne had nothing left to do but to agree to give birth. She remembered her mother's instructions that she should be kind and affectionate to her future husband, which meant that the girl could not argue. From the threshold, it became clear that Violetta Yegorovna did not have tender feelings for her future bride. The limit appeared, barely looking at the girl. She spat her blood out without 5 minutes. Well, Mom, Mariana is very good. Anton tried to justify her. Because he was standing in the hallway, covering the bride, it was clear that he was a little awkward from the aggressive statements of his mother. Good girls, son, do not jump into bed to teachers, and they are not pregnant until marriage, said How cut off Violetta Yegorovna and sailed to the kitchen.
Un button, come in.
Anton quietly said, displeased by such an icy reception of Marianne. She will first scream for the sake of the view, and then everything will be fine. Do not doubt. Marianne really wanted to ask the groom what exactly he meant by the words good, but she held back. The mother's attitude was affected that the world with a daughter-in-law, the bride must be set at any cost. The kitchen and the kitchenware continued. Mariana, of course, did not expect that a magnificent celebration would be organized for her arrival, but she did not expect to be a Cinderella on this day. Violetta Yegorovna was on the opposite side, as if she had specially decided to arrange a run with obstacles for a young woman and a test for professionalism in one bottle. First, Mariana pointed to the potato mountain in the sink, which should have been washed, cleaned, and cooked from it, and then they put a puree in the pan to fry chicken. Under the pretext of having to rest from a hard-working day, the obedient son did not argue with the loving mother-in-law and disappeared into some of the doors, leaving the bride alone with Violetta Yegorovna. Faster, faster, beat it up. That's how Mom Anton got involved in the process of making an air puree. Do not regret the butter. And milk. Milk needs to be heated. There's nothing to do but to dance around the cups. Who taught you to cook? You can't even make a simple dish. How will you feed my son? At first, Mariana thought that she could deserve the blessing of Violetta Yegorovna by cooking a delicious dinner. Minutes later, it turned out that it was impossible. There would be no normal relationship, no dinner. Regardless of what and how Mariana did, the future mother-in-law was dreaming about her with her prayers. Here she is, spinning, a shark, my boy. She jumped into bed, ran to the wall with her belly. She is an uneducated limit, and she is going to the professor's wives. I know your breed, I know. And not only that you are not a grouch, you can't do anything. She only learned to hunt for boys, a predator. Marianne really wanted to say that her Anton is not a professor yet, and not even a teacher, but she tried so hard to keep silence and not to make a woman angry. And Violetta Yegorovna continued in between. The boy has almost finished his dissertation. And how to defend yourself when such sharks have opened their mouths? Do you put sticks in his wheels on purpose to get in touch with such a villager as you? But what kind of girls could he have? From good, rich, educated, beautiful families. Not like you. And the children would be born smart. But who are you giving birth to? It is not known yet. It is not known to what heights of mastery of imagination Violetta Yegorovna would reach, but here Mariana decided to give in to herself. I love your son, and I am sure that I will be able to finish school, and we will achieve a lot together in life. And you did not even allow us to have a wedding, a modest wedding. The future mother-in-law raised her eyebrows and said in a very, It's not my business, but keep in mind that I will not let you take away a penny of my boy. She wanted a wedding and a village limit. So go to your village and walk there a wedding with local collective farmers. And it will be like I said. And I advise you to remember well that I will solve all the problems in my house. So you will earn your living, go there and order there. What to say? The acquaintance turned out to be very unpleasant. Violetta Yegorovna did not even praise the strip of Mariana, but even bowed when Anton, having tried the puree and the beatings, gently patted the bride on the shoulder and kissed her forehead. I would be ashamed to do that they need to live in the apartment with his mother, because they simply cannot rent a separate apartment. No matter how sad Mariana is not to admit it, but the groom was definitely right. Her small scholarship, together with his unprofessional salary, could only provide them with the most necessary. In the morning, Mariana shared her concerns with her mother, and Olga answered her. But when I come, I'll figure it out. It's a pity there won't be a wedding. This daughter is not human. What? Even just to sit together? Your Antosha refuses. Yes, Mom, cried Mariana, and wants to live with her, with Violetta Yegorovna. Since she did not keep herself, then bear with it now, urged Olga, who was sorry for her only daughter, but she could not do anything. We'll endure, we'll love. Olga didn't want to be a disgrace to the village for returning her pregnant daughter home without a husband or a chance to become a specialist. Soon after the modest painting, which had no single guest, Mariana moved into Anton's and Violetta Yegorovna's apartment with her things. The room was prepared for them in a smaller way. However, it was not prepared. That's not the word. Mariana was busy with its preparations. Despite pregnancy, you need to move the couch and wash the dust well, said her mother-in-law. And who will wipe under the cabinet? Mother did not teach anything, except to jump on the beds with men. It seemed that the whole meaning of life of Violetta Yegorovna now was placed in the task to make the bride as sick as possible, to stab her more strongly, and her mother. Anton, while the young wife was sent to the equipped lodge to finish his dissertation. His housework was done, as it turned out, in a monthly report to his mother for the size of the salary. Now, apparently, the woman decided that she had a personal butrachka and actively used the bride in all difficult household chores. One cleaning on the day of the wedding was of course not limited. Mariana was rubbing, wiping, washing, and shaking for a day. The girl almost did not allow to use the achievements of technical progress that were in the house. So, the mother-in-law for some reason believed that the washed steam mop floors are different in purity in the worst part from those that are washed by hand, and no less than in 3 waters. Violetta Yegorovna's opinion was that the vacuum cleaner was just a focus of the evil of the universe. Because with the dust, the young bride fought the old way. With the help of her own hands, a broom and a wet rack. This extremely tired Mariana, and sometimes even caused a pain in the lower abdomen. After cleaning, the girl stepped up for the second shift. She began to prepare for the whole family of 3 people. The girl tried her best, and the blood was just curled up, trying another dish. Unsalted. What a crooked hostess. Or, the meat is too tough. Can you chew such a soul? Only you translate the food. It had to be brought to a boil under a lid with a small amount of liquid, so that it would not boil and burn. And how did you do it? You poured everything into a pan and feed us like a pig in your village? Mariana's scholarship also went to the introduction of Violetta Yegorovna. The woman justified her demands in this way. I have worked all my life as the chief accountant at the enterprise. I know how to count money. And you, Golidba, are not a housewife, and my son will become the same with you. While you live with me, you put all the money in a common mug. Does not it suit you to go to your mother's village to spin the tail of a cow? Anton was fully in solidarity with his mother, and with delight told Marianne on what a beautiful stroller and what a wonderful bed for a baby. They have enough money if they trust the accumulation of future grandmother. The girl had to agree with her husband, although at heart she had every day harder. To get at least a little joy, Mariana asked Anton for permission to invite his mother to visit. Anton allowed it easily, and also easily ran away from home to work. When Mariana, redder as if going to do something unworthy, reported about their plans to her in-laws, she heard in response many filth about herself and her mother. Violetta Yegorovna was sure that her mother and Mariana will definitely carry out a special operation to seize her property and turn him into his own. However, the invitation of her in-laws was not. She didn't cancel the party, saying that she was a great-granddaughter. Let her see how normal people live. Olga came the next day. It was Saturday, and in order to get to the city on a weekend, she had to get up at a.m. Having loaded bags with various village supplies, the woman got on the bus in the district, and already in hours she was at the bus station in the city where her daughter was sent to study. However, only Mariana met her at the platform. "And how about my son-in-law?" Olga asked her daughter, looking at the heavy bags at her feet. "You can't carry this, you're in a position, and my back and hands hurt so much. I tried. I brought you the most delicious, fresh, and healthy. And now I look and I have the impression that no one except you does not need this especially." He left for the dacha with his mother. Mariana reported cheerfully, and then add that something incredibly urgent happened that could not wait. "I understand." Olga grumbled to herself, and then, to console her daughter, she said, "Well, we're going to have a royal lunch with a rake, right?" Mariana happily smiled and caught herself thinking that smiling so sincerely had already almost been learned, already began to pull out all the juices from it. When Violetta Yegorovna and her son crossed the threshold, they were met by the aroma of homemade pies with stewed cabbage, ribs with potatoes, boiled salt, and even conserved garden wonders. Dried up, greeting the swan, Violetta Yegorovna got tired and went to her room, tightly pretending to have a door. Anton also replied that he was not hungry and left to sit in the kitchen together. Olga didn't say anything, but she felt what pain such a life brings to Marianne. The woman left the next morning, realizing that she was not happy anyway. No one called to take the woman to the station. The attitude towards her as a poor relative was more than clear. Time passed. Marianne was not carrying the pregnancy as easily as she wanted. Often had to spend 1 or 2 weeks in the hospital for preservation. Anton spent all this time doing his own life, and therefore the girl had to solve her own problems herself. To go around without homemade food and eat hospital food, to run to the pharmacy on her own, to carry heavy bags with things. Is it worth saying that the in-laws did not take a single little part in Mariana's life, and were not at all interested in the pregnancy of the bride? Violetta Yegorovna noticed her son's wife only in cases when she needed to either clean up, wash, or cook something. Then the presence of Mariana caused a lot of reproaches, girls' crookedness, and the lack of any household skills. Her husband stopped protecting her from her mother and, only staying with her, he asked her not to answer the senior generation's bravado and reminded her that her mother wanted it better. Apparently, Marianne's wishes were not taken into account. Anton did not see that his mother herself was too strict with her daughter-in-law, and she was more and more demanding with her every day, often even incompatible with each other. Marianne was even more unpleasant at the end of the semester, when she was giving away all winter session, and without the help of her husband, and bragged to this Anton, he said, "I think you better not go to school next semester. You will have a vacation in the academy in connection with pregnancy and childbirth, and you will be able to calmly enjoy your vacation." "True, I'm good at you and I came up with a great idea." Mariana was not shy at all. She knew that Anton was definitely aware of how important it was for her to finish university and get her cherished diploma in higher education. For her, it was literally the meaning of existence, and the only ray of light in that dark kingdom in which she is now. "No, what are you doing, Mariana? I have no trouble learning. In addition, we usually get together." Anton surprisingly raised his eyebrows, as if he wanted to say that he did not understand the démarche of his wife. "But this is very important for me, very." Mariana continued with heat. "I've already written a statement for you, and it's probably signed by the dean. What kind of stupidity have you come up with? Why do you need to carry your belly to school? Don't you have enough homework? Then mom is probably right. When she says that you spend the whole day doing all sorts of nonsense and don't think about the household. You can study later. You'll be born. You'll be in a maternity and go to school. And now you, as a good wife and a good mother, she should be responsible and think more about our child. Mariana was very offended. Betrayal. Evil tears burned her eyes and rolled through the transparent droplets on her tan cheeks. This man simply trampled her whole dream into her own interest. And there is nothing to fix. She is carrying his child. Before the door closed behind her, she also managed to hear how politely laughed at her trouble in her room with blood. This finally led Marianne out of the balance, and she wept out loud. The remainder of winter and spring passed on the same unhappy notes. Marianne thought that her husband was not the happy and affectionate Anton they met. This man was demanding of her and extremely harsh. Her husband was giving everything to his mother, and Mariana's opinion meant practically nothing to her. The girl tried not to complain to her mother. What's the point if she heard about Olga every time? Did you see the eyes that were buying? Try to be silent and not quarrel. Your relatives behave badly. Well, what can you do? I chose such. And Mariana was silent and crying in the pillow for long nights. She had no one to fall for, and it literally killed her. In the city, she was a stranger, had no one of her own kind, and in the village her way was ordered. When there were 5 more weeks left until Mariana was born, Violetta Yegorovna was forced to wash all the chandeliers in the house. To perform acrobatic trick of removing and rehang each chandelier, it was the bride who should do it. When the girl tried to point out to her mother and husband that standing on a rake of a stool and pulling up is not the best thing for pregnant women, and perhaps it would be worth asking to do this to Anton, sitting at the computer in the next room, a real storm broke out. Shameless. Antosha is writing a dissertation. He is busy. And you're nothing, trying to load him with your work, so that he sits next to your skirt all his life. The blood was flowing, stepping on Mariana. The girl had no choice, and I had to climb on the catwalk and kitchen stool. The chandelier in the big room was easily given up by her efforts, as in the corridor. But in the small room it was not removed at all. Having pulled the hook to remove it exactly and not break it, Mariana suddenly felt one of the legs of the stool break, cracked, then lost balance and fell to the floor. She remembered the rest badly. Only the flashlight under the ceiling in the ambulance carriage remained in memory until the sound of the siren, with which the car was braking through the road in dense traffic. Then, in the reception room, something grotesque and loud was telling about the blood. She climbed up herself? I told her. Where can you stop her, silly girl? Something incomprehensible was happening to Anton. Then the mask fell on Mariana's face and all the sensations and sounds disappeared. When she woke up in the room, Mariana touched her belly for the first time. It was almost flat, and she was disgustingly sitting down. Barely finding the strength to get up, Mariana screamed towards the door. Where is my child? The door opened, and the sleeping nurse stepped into the ward. Don't worry, we saved your boy. He's in the nursery in Kaveza. Good weight, as for this term, so he will live. Here, I just got a little hungry, but it's okay. Having cured Marianne's drip, the woman left. After an urgent, when they were finally discharged home, it turned out that neither the beds nor the stroller the father and grandmother loved were bought. And now Mariana herself will have to deal with this urgently. Instead of a festive meeting from the maternity home, she was expected to prepare dinner, and instead of helping the child, the back of the husband sitting at the computer and the nightingale of his mother. Neither Violetta Yegorovna nor Anton fed her, bathed her, walked her, did everything by herself. I have no time. I'm working. Only she heard from her husband. Leave Anton alone, you villager. Don't bother him with studying, his mother said. Finally, Anton moved to her room. Under the pretext that his own son screams at night, and prevents him from sleeping. You are a useless mother. He told her husband to stay with the child in response to a request. I don't have the right to rest at night? I work, by the way, and bring money to the house. This is what Anton answered to any attempt by his wife to bring him closer to the life of his own child. However, Mariana did not see the money. Neither her husband's salary nor her pensioners. They all sat in the pockets of her in-laws, from where she gave out her savings. And the bride, based on the reasoning of the second mother, did not rely on anything. What do you need there? The mother-in-law wrinkled her face. You live on everything ready. Just do the child and keep order. Well, like in heaven. Sometimes Mariana asked for a small amount from her mother, but most often she could not count on her. After all, Olga lived in the village, also not rich. Mariana did not renew the wardrobe at all and did not use cosmetics. And her son got used to buying the cheapest and not always high-quality things. Anton was getting further and further away from his wife and son, constantly disappearing, allegedly, at the university. Mariana, on walks with her stroller, dreamily looked at the young girls of her peers. They ran to school in dates, young and not pregnant at all. How she wanted to be the same now. How she felt sorry for the girl. That everything turned out exactly as it was. It's embarrassing to admit, but Mariana was even a little jealous of the lightness with which her husband lived. How I wish the girl could think about nothing and go on her life for at least one day, breathing with her whole chest. How Anton did it. True, he literally never changed his son's clothes, never walked with him, and even, it seems, never took him by the hand. But he was happy. Unlike Mariana, who had already forgotten what it means to fall asleep well and wash your head in time. When the end of August was already standing in the yard and the hot summer days were at the end, Anton appeared on the threshold unusually joyful. Congratulations to me. Everything worked out. He nodded to his mother. Son, my dear. His mother-in-law hugged him. One Mariana could not understand what was happening, and silently stood in the corridor, pressing the baby to himself. I'm going to China for internship, according to the university exchange program. I went to her before Anton explained. How long did you spend in China? For 3 years. Anton smiled with indignation. The trip was the day after tomorrow. I want to pack my things. The mother-in-law looked at her daughter-in-law in a devious way, as if she personally achieved such a profitable trip for her son and ran after him. Wait, Anashenka, I'll help you get ready. Otherwise, no one will even hit me with their finger to help. Everything is on its own. Everything is on its own. Mariana, in confusion, went down to the hallway. Anton leaves and leaves her with his mother. And how will they last 3 years here with their son? Tears flowed down the cheeks of the young woman. 2 days flew by quickly, and Anton stepped over the threshold of the house, leaving Mariana and the child in the power of Violetta Yegorovna. From that day on, the young woman had to turn even faster. The in-laws were not shy to entrust her not only with work at home, but also with the homework at the dacha, which had to be prepared for the winter. It was also necessary to engage with the son, who needed massages, and breastfeeding to overcome the consequences of insomnia. Mariana became like a shadow, because she ate little, slept little, but moved a lot. Every time when the girl tried to stand up for herself and save some time for rest, the mother-in-law reminded her that she was in her apartment out of mercy, and therefore had to work out her content and nightlife. Every time, Violetta Yegorovna found such offensive words and nicknames for her daughter-in-law that she pressed herself with tears into the pillow so as not to wake the baby up in the bed. More than once or twice, Mariana decided to go to her mother, but realized that there was no work in the village, and to allocate at least some money for her grandson. In that case, if Mariana took him away, her father-in-law categorically refused. It was not moral or material. He disappeared from the communication after a week after he arrived in Beijing, and only in rare SMS wrote that he would be able to dial later. For the second month, Mariana did not know what was happening in her husband's life. This happened late in the autumn, when the rains were continuous, and the solid gray fog was rarely diluted. In the morning, Violetta Yegorovna felt unimportant, but did not give it any meaning. And in vain. By evening, the ambulance took an elderly woman to the hospital. When the next morning, Mariana and the child in a sling came to visit the second mother, the doctor explained that she had a stroke. The speech was damaged and the whole right side of the body. In other words, from now on, Violetta Yegorovna could neither walk nor serve herself. And in such a state, she was promised to be discharged home. Immediately after the end of the period, that is, about 2 weeks later, Mariana immediately tried to reach Anton, but his phone was traditionally not answering. They did not know about him either in the embassy or in the university's D. If a young woman were not so stuck in the struggle with difficulties, then she would only have to sit down and cry. But he had a son, and this could not be allowed. The first breakthrough of the bride, who had not seen anything good from her husband's mother, was to pack up and leave, giving the elderly woman the opportunity to deal with the difficulties herself. However, her mother did not raise her in such a way as to leave the person in need. Therefore, Mariana began to act. When Violetta Yegorovna was brought home in days, the bed was already prepared for the needs of the lying person. Mariana also bought everything that was needed to take care of her blood. From that day on, she tried to spend her daily time to do a woman's massage as much as possible, talk to her, try to teach her to say at least some sounds and chew. The new year was coming to Mariana barely a year. She fell from the knot of fatigue. But what did it mean? If Violetta Yegorovna was able to perform the logopedic exercise for the first time, it was already spring on the threshold, and Mariana continued to work on her blood pressure, and she began to slowly feel the right hand. 2 months later, Violetta Yegorovna was able to sit down on her own and speak simple words. And 6 months later, by the summer, she took her first steps in the walkways. Such a colossal progress would not be possible without Mariana, and Violetta Yegorovna understood this as the best way. She thought for a long time about how to communicate with her daughter-in-law. She was ashamed of her statements at her expense and behavior of her son. She tried to find Anton many times, but he seemed to be in a hurry and only periodically addressed with messages from strangers. Finally, the blood sweat gained some courage and asked the bride to come to her after the child laid down. "You forgive me, Mariana, for my words and for how I behaved with you. Forgive the old fool. I see now that what was unfair to you was. I could have built everything anew." Mariana apologized silently with an understanding smile. She hugged an elderly woman and hugged her. They sat far away for midnight. The peace in their family was restored. It became much easier for Marianne to live. She often had a mother-in-law at her invitation. In addition, the baby grew up and did not cause any special problems. A year after the malignant stroke, Violetta Yegorovna recovered completely and offered her daughter-in-law to return to school. "Our boy is so calm. I can handle him easily while you're in pairs. Go, Mariana. Learn while you can. You can easily overcome the lost." And Mariana stopped the vacation at the academy and again got into the ranks of students. Of course, she became more tired, but it was worth it. After classes, Mariana returned home, where her son and second mother were waiting for her. In the second year of Anton's absence, life went on in its own way. Having loaded the dishwasher after dinner, Mariana laid out her notes on the table, as if she heard a strange sound. It was the key to the locked well. With a whistle, Mariana ran out to the hallway and stood at the door. She remembered a lot about Anton all last year, and was very worried if anything had happened. That it was the husband who was opening this door now, the young woman had no doubts. Anton was really standing in the doorway. But behind his back, Mariana looked at the useless suitcase of useful gifts, and the bright-colored young girl. The man stepped over the threshold and lured his companion behind him.
Come in, Lilia.
The colored girl entered the hallway, looking at Mariana. Anton. Mariana had started, but that gesture stopped her. If it was shorter, then Mom was completely right on your account. You are a villager and will immediately return to your collective farm. There is a more suitable atmosphere for you there than in a higher educational institution. Collect your things quickly and leave, so that your spirit is not here. Pressing his satellite to himself, the husband of Mariana continued, and I will marry a normal city girl. Mariana came to her senses from the first shock and looked at her husband with all her eyes. She could not imagine that Anton could behave so mean. Don't you want to ask about your son first? She quietly said. Or about the feelings of your mother, who was paralyzed. Or about how we survived when you did not send us a penny in these years. Don't you want to ask about this? She was paralyzed? It seemed that Anton would laugh now. Come on, you fool. You think I will believe in your fantasies? You came up with this to lure me back into this hole. Admit it. Mom has excellent health. She was absolutely sure not to be threatened by any insult. Anton looked at her demandingly. The girl who accompanied him sat down on the bed and began to take off her shoes and top clothes. Suddenly gave up the quiet voice of Violetta Yegorovna.
Come iar, son.
Here, and my hands and legs were still. Finally you came, said Violetta Yegorovna. Your Mariana tormented me. But now everything will be fine, right? You are not alone, son. Meet me, your lady of the heart. And let Mariana, before you kick her out of our house, teach you how to serve me a vessel, wash it, wipe me, to do gymnastics with me, and everything she did here is not good. And let your girl learn, and who will follow me while you are at work. What to serve, sorry? Did not believe his ears, Anton. A ship? Wipe you. Mom, this is not a joke and not a fiction, Marianne. It seemed that the man was in trouble. His girlfriend, whom he called Lily, and who stood by the door of the room during this dialogue, she laughed loudly. She couldn't come to her senses when she accepted the teacher's offer to go to his homeland from China and live with him, which will have to carry the ship for a lying man. To deliver the ship, said Violetta Yegorovna. And what makes you embarrassed? I won't get to the toilet. Mom, I need to think. Anton replied. I can't do it right away. We can't do it with Lily. Oh, you poor thing. The voice of an old woman suddenly lost its creaking and became completely normal. Is this how I brought you up? Did I teach you this? Violetta Yegorovna, with all her might, pushed her son off the bed and stood up. Anton silently watched the metamorphoses that were happening to his mother in his eyes. This is what you paid off to your wife for her loyalty and devotion. You brought a girl into the house with a light behavior, and you think you're allowed to do anything? And where is Marianne with your son? Under the bridge? First of all, Mom, this is your apartment and not mine. The husband grumbled as if from strong pain. Wives. And secondly, Lily-Ann. He didn't have time to finish. Marianne entered the room with sharp steps. It was clear that she was holding back from her last efforts. This is not your mother's apartment, Anton. Quietly, but quite clearly, the girl said. Now this apartment belongs to me and our son in equal shares. What shares? What are you talking about? Anton waved at her as if she were just a lazy fly. She is telling the truth, Anton, unlike you. Violetta Yegorovna's voice was heard again. I know the man well, and I remember your dad very well. He also ran away, leaving you in my hands, very small. So when you stopped communicating, I had no doubt about how it would all end. And after your wife raised me on my feet, not sleeping at night and not finishing a piece, I gave her a gift and a baby. So this is now her apartment, Anton. And with the owner of these square meters, you will have to count whether you want it or not. If Anton was now poured out of the ice water, he would not look as pathetic as at this moment. Wait, Mariana. You misunderstood me, he started, but the girl had nothing to lose. No, Anton, I and our son, we both understood you correctly. You have exhausted us from your life, and we are kicking you out of our house. Take your girl and leave here until I call the police. It's late. The child is sleeping. But how? Anton did not care. How did you get a gift? You are a fraud, and I can easily prove it in court. Get out, Mariana repeated, entering the rush. Get out of here. Leave, Anton. Come on, Lilia. We will settle down only after the court's decision. Leaving the last, complete hatred for his wife. I will divorce myself. Watching him as his ex-husband hurried to leave the apartment. When the doors were closed behind Anton's back, Mariana gave up tears. They sat together in the kitchen with Violetta Yegorovna, drank hot tea with plushies, and exchanged sad stories. The father-in-law told his daughter-in-law about how Anton's father disappeared from her life. And Mariana, wiping away the tears, remembered how happy they were at the beginning of their relationship with Anton. Everything is good that ends well. The old woman summed up the conversation, getting up from the table. Go and lie down to rest. You have to go to school tomorrow, and I'll clean up here and lie down too. Thank you. Mariana suddenly closed her eyes, and then added, Mom, please. Violetta Yegorovna smiled. The divorce process was already in effect soon. As I promised, Mariana filed for divorce herself and was ready to go through this hard path with her head held high. However, her blood sister-in-law helped her in everything, who should now have gone to the status of a former. But in fact, she took the most vital part in the fate of the girl. Anton tried to file a lawsuit for the recognition of the gift to the non-real apartment, but failed in his beginning. It so happened that the neighbors who saw how self-reliant Mariana was taking care of her in-laws and the employees who had the opportunity to see the same thing, did not see the same thing. The judge made a decision in favor of the estates. During the decision of the court, Violetta Yegorovna held Mariana tightly in her hand. Since then, the relationship between women has not just improved, but also became truly family. The child grew up, constantly bringing to life Mariana and her in-law many good and joyful moments. Mariana herself, with pleasure, continued her studies at the. Although she was afraid at first that Anton would appear at the department and spoil her reputation, weeks went by and nothing happened. After several months, the Marians heard that Anton had very poorly recommended himself during his internship in China. They also said that the reason for his poor attitude towards him from the leadership of Beijing University was the lack of understanding of the young teacher in communication. Anton was repeatedly involved in love stories, and none of his hobbies went without a scandal. It made him fall in love with a first-year student. Then he threw her and drew the attention of his colleagues, and then tried to make two girls fall in love at the same time. Anton's behavior was not tolerated there and pointed out the way out, and soon the same thing happened here. As for Lily, she was the very first grader who made a romance with her married teacher. Despite her very influential parents, she was also asked to leave the walls of the school, and she had nothing left but to follow home for her lover. However, for a long time, the couple could not hold on to the status of Anton and Lily, and they ran away for mutual pleasure. Lily quickly found a new status guardian, and Anton got just not too honorable title of unemployed. After the third year of high school, Mariana began to seriously think about her future, as well as the prospects of her son. In order to stand on her feet confidently, the girl decided to develop her own mini-business. Since high school, Mariana has been able and loved to bake delicious cakes, and it was this occupation that she was able to do. Decided the young mother to earn for herself and her son for life. She baked a sample batch of Trini cupcakes, which are now desserts, and distributed them among her classmates. The sample turned out to be very successful, and soon Mariana already had several orders. By the beginning of the fourth year, the assortment of bakeries, named after the owner himself, was already quite extensive. Mariana realized that now she would be able to not worry about herself, her son, or Violetta. Time still went on. Once Mariana, a fourth grader, was returning home from the spa. Her son was waiting for her at her grandmother's company, and it was New Year at the nose, so the girl's mood was high. The figure of a man walking in front of her, wrapped in a dark coat, Maria seemed not too familiar. Yes, that's right. When she came closer, she was convinced that he was going somewhere in his business. Judging by his poor clothes, the business of the former husband was not in the best shape. Maria did not know what to do. Call him? Ask if she needs help? Offer to see at least with the son? But all that evil that was caused by his guilt, or it was done to them personally, the girl's memory surfaced and she slowed down. Anton was mean not only to her. He also betrayed his own mother and his own son. However, life apparently gives everyone the opportunity to learn about her wisdom from their own mistakes. Looking a little further after her ex-husband, Mariana turned to another path. Perhaps in her own life, mistakes are enough.